Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day, there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And when we have a successful business, we want to grow. But many times, companies, small businesses can't get past that hurdle to that next level, and we don't know why. Well, my guest today is really going to help us with that. So please join me in welcoming Yarin Gaon, right? Did I do that?
Yes.
Yarin Gaon to the program today.
Yes.
Thank you, Yarin. I'm glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Deb.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit more about you, and then we'll jump into this. So
Let's do
Yarin Gaon is an entrepreneur, investor, and founder of Fractional Partners. He launched his first business at 14 and later built and sold Israel's largest e-commerce platform for military goods before moving to the U.S. After serving as an entrepreneur in residence at a venture capital firm helping turn around distressed startups, he has mentored more than 400 founders through SCORE and the University of Chicago's Polsky Center. Today, Yarin helps $1 to $2 million businesses gain strategic clarity, scale profitability, and build stronger, more valuable companies. So again, Yarin, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Deb.
Great. Well, you have had a very interesting background. So tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Ooh. So as you mentioned, I started very young.
Mm-hmm.
I built my first business when I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
I was privileged enough to have parents that allowed me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I started my second one when I was 16. I got drafted to the Israeli military. We have a mandatory service
Right. Mm-hmm.
at the age of 18. So I had to close my previous businesses,
Mm-hmm.
served 3 years as a combat soldier, saw a really interesting need. So just a little bit of context. In Israel, service is mandatory. But the government doesn't provide you with enough equipment as you go through this draft experience. So there's a whole secondary market of almost like army, it's not army surplus, but it's army equipment. Everything from shirts to socks to watches to knives to
Everything.
as you go through the experience to gun parts and vests and helmets. But there's a whole secondary market. But the other challenge was when I was younger, is that Israel observes Shabbat, meaning that everything closes on Saturday. So if you are a combat soldier, you really get to go home every 2 weeks to 3 weeks for about 48 hours. Half of those 48 hours, everything is closed. So you really have a very short amount of time to get what you need. And at the time, there wasn't any online store. You had to go to a physical store. You had a very short amount of time. So as I finished my army service, I was like, okay, what if we can just do it online? We can just ship it to base or ship it home. So I did. It came to be, and I grew it for about 7 years. We opened a brick and mortar shop. We became the largest in Israel for military goods. And then just before moving to the US, I sold it to my largest competitor because I knew I want to have a fresh start here. Then I finished my MBA, as you mentioned. I did my last semester as an external student at Kellogg at Northwestern, joined a VC. It was a really cool experience. Got to work with a lot of fancy way to say is distressed companies, and not fancy way to say is companies that ran out of money usually.
Right. They're very much struggling.
Yes. And help them and turn them around in this really unique, weird position because I came from the fund, but I wasn't exactly a consultant. I was this weird crossbreed. I came from the fund and I came from with resources, right? They gave me resources and teams to bring in place. So I came and I joined the leadership team, but I wasn't exactly a part of the C-suite, but I wasn't exactly a consultant. I had some authority. It was this really weird position which I later came to develop what is called fractional partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like this, almost like your co-founder
Mm-hmm.
that helps you kind of steer the
Mm-hmm.
business, not so much how to manage operation,
Okay.
because I
Okay.
assume that a lot of people at the specific stage that I work with
Mm-hmm.
know how to execute.
Mm-hmm.
Their challenge was with
Mm-hmm.
like, how do I take this forward?
Mm-hmm.
So I came into this weird
Mm-hmm.
internal, external resource
Mm-hmm.
and kind of helped almost like set with the founder in the driver's seat,
Mm-hmm.
steering the ship.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of led to fractional partners, which is what I do now with usually $5 to $25 million
Mm-hmm.
businesses. Yeah, that's a little bit about my
Mm-hmm.
context.
I love it. And we're familiar with fractional terms, fractional CEO, fractional CFO, things like that, where it's in essence a part-time
Yeah.
employee, right? You don't need a full-time director of marketing, and or whatever it
Right.
is, and so you hire them for a fraction of the time. And the
Yes.
cool thing is, those people get to work, however many companies they want to be working for at the same time, but it fills that niche because there is that need, but they don't need somebody full time. And so I love that you're kind of that hybrid type of position.
Yes, with the caveat that I come before fractional CFO, CMO, or
Okay.
COO.
Okay.
And the idea here that
Mhm.
I, unlike other fractional
Mhm.
executives, I am not a part of your team, nor is my job to help you execute.
Ah,
So let me take you kind of on a path of where I see, how I see the world,
okay.
and where
Okay.
I see opportunity and where I see a lot of companies kind of
Mhm.
start struggle.
Mhm.
So as we grow companies, we usually the way to do that is to apply different growth model for different stages. So let me explain what that means. As you start growing a company, 0 to 2, 3, $4 million in
Mhm.
sales, the model that you apply is all about growth by addition.
Mhm.
So the idea here is what can I say yes to?
Right.
What
Somebody
clients
needs
can
this, I will do it.
Yes, I would say yes. The model is let's say yes and
Mhm.
let's launch multiple different products and multiple different kind of
Mhm.
customers in multiple different channels and revenue streams.
Mhm.
It's all about discovery
Mhm.
and really identifying where's the
Mhm.
product market fit or where is
Mhm.
traction or what is resonating in the
Mhm.
marketplace. What happens is that a lot of companies, once they find product market fit or
Mhm.
traction, meaning that something is working,
Mhm.
they try to continue growing with this model.
Mhm.
So what got you there is not going to get you, what got you here is not going to get you there.
Mhm.
But they just apply what they know. They apply the hustle
Mhm.
mentality. I want to hustle. I want to say yes to more things.
Mhm.
But what happens is if you are a $4, 5, $6 million company and you
Mhm.
start saying yes to everything,
Mhm.
a lot of interesting things happen. One, complexity goes up.
Mhm.
So everything becomes very hard to manage because
Mhm.
you are doing so many things. You basically most times have multiple different types of businesses
Mhm.
under one umbrella, but
Mhm.
they're still very small
Mhm.
businesses.
Mhm.
So complexity goes up,
Mhm.
margin goes down
Mhm. Right.
because you do too many
Mhm.
things, you lose efficiency,
Mhm.
and your margin goes down. Sometimes your profit stays
Mhm.
stagnant, sometimes it goes down,
Mhm.
and you just work harder
Mhm.
and create a bigger company,
Mhm.
but you just don't see it flow to the
Mhm.
bottom line.
Mhm.
And that's where things start to break and companies start
Mhm.
to really feel friction in
Right.
their
Yeah,
growth.
because there's so much, a lot of times they don't even know what all's going on.
Correct. It just becomes very hard to
Mhm.
manage.
Mhm.
The better model for companies at the 5 to 25 range
Mhm.
is what I call growth by subtraction.
Mhm.
And the idea behind growth by subtraction is okay, we built something,
Mhm.
something is working, great. Let's identify what is the 20% that produces 80% of
Mhm.
profit,
Mhm.
not revenue. So we're
Right.
distinguishing the
Mhm.
two.
Mhm.
And let's double down on something small and cut
Mhm.
everything else.
Mhm.
And that would take us to the next level.
Mhm.
It's not going to be
Mhm.
forever,
Mhm.
but until you get to a point where I have more resources, I have a bigger team, I have a more stable business, then I can start saying yes again. And then we talk about growth by expansion. Basically, what else can I say
Mhm.
yes to?
Mhm.
But that stage, that
Mhm.
shift from growth by addition into growth by subtraction
Mhm.
rarely happens.
Mhm. Right,
So
because you're still
come,
saying, yes, we have to
yes,
do this. Yes, we have to do this.
yes,
And of course, as especially when you start your business, you don't ever want to tell anybody, no, I can't
right,
do that.
right.
Because their business is going to go elsewhere. But we don't realize, well, we might say, sure, we can do that, but we might not be good at it.
That just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do
Right.
it.
Or that you want to. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times, and I'm guessing you've seen this, you have had people that have said, oh, yeah, we do X, and we don't even really like doing that.
Yes, it takes them out of their core. So what they end up being is they become mediocre in a lot of different things instead of becoming exceptional in one thing that kind of takes them to the next level.
Right.
And one of the challenges that I see, and this is where we're going to go back to fractionals, is that a lot of times where companies or founders feel that friction of growth by addition, where they already have product market fit or traction, but they're still starting to add more, stuff starts to break. The key is that most times founders attribute this to an operational problem, meaning that let's put more processes in place. Let's put more people, let's put more processes, let's put EOS or an
We're just going to throw stuff at it.
Yes, let's just try to organize the chaos that we're experiencing and let's bring the people and just like try to manage what we have.
Yeah. And what they do is they create more chaos.
Correct. They create more chaos and it just doesn't solve the root problem. So what I do is I come before that happens. So I work with companies at the $5 to $25 million range. And what we do is we go on a process of designing version 2. So you started a business and you built it by saying yes, and that's amazing. But if we want to scale it, let's pause for a moment. Let's find a version that is smaller, more profitable, better aligned with what you're trying to achieve here. Then you go and you scale it. And when you scale it, that's where you call this fractional CMO and fractional CFO.
Right,
and fractional
because you
CFO,
are ready to go to that next level.
because they are able to execute on your plan. But what happens is that a lot of companies, a lot of founders hire those their fractional executive thinking that they will bring their strategy.
Right.
They don't.
They're just more the chaos.
Correct. They execute. They're executives, right? Their job is to execute on your plan. A lot of times the companies are just not mature enough or baked enough to actually get the most of hiring those professional executives at a fractional rate. That makes sense?
It does. It does. And I love, that it says this on your website, it says this on your shirt.
Yeah.
Hustle is not a plan.
It's a good plan at the beginning.
Right. Yeah, because you are building your business, and so you do need to hustle. You need to,
Yes.
but yeah, at some point you have to stop saying yes. But you've gotten into that habit of doing that.
Yes. So before I tell you, why do you think most companies have a hard time saying yes? Or I'm sorry, have a hard time stop saying yes? Because it's a hard thing to do.
It is. They're used to it. They don't want to disappoint people. But I think that, for me, what my thought would be is they think that they're going to lose money, right?
Yes.
And so even if they, and of course what happens, I'm guessing, is they say yes and have no idea if they can even do it. And then they discover they can't, or it's going to take so much more resources that they don't have, or, pull this resource from something that's working well, because they didn't want to disappoint. And then, of course, the problem is they're disappointing everybody because they're not doing any of it well.
Yes, they just become mediocre. I found something very similar. So there's a couple of reasons why companies fall through that trap. One is focus on revenue versus profit. So when you chase revenue, it's very hard to say no to big transactions.
Bring the money in the door. Bring the money in the door.
But if you change your lens from a revenue-based lens into a profit-based lens, the question becomes much more potent. It's like, okay, yeah, this is gonna bring a lot of revenue in the door, but what would be the profit on that? And a lot of times I find that, again, we know that different type of clients require different type of operation and then different cost profiles. Different kind of products or services have different margins, right? Just because we can bring in revenue doesn't mean we're going to keep the cash or we're going to keep profit.
What are the expenses associated with it?
Yes, and making that shift from revenue-based mindset into a profit-based mindset requires you to be in control of your numbers, but also like a shift in mindset here. I'm not here to build the biggest company. I'm here to build the most profitable company. There's a mindset shift that needs to happen. A lot of time doesn't happen. Another point is opportunity cost. So here's the thing that people here's the thing. When you are a five, three, $4 million business,
Mhm.
you are still a tiny business.
Mhm.
It is
Right.
a
In the
tiny,
in the grand scheme of
in the
things,
grand
yes.
scheme, especially if you operate in the US, you are a
Mhm.
tiny.
Mhm.
You have not conquered any market at three. So when you say basically what you have a small team usually with few resources, and resources can be labor or capital,
Mhm.
but basically you have a very small team with a very small war chest.
Mhm.
And when you decide to pursue different avenues, you are by default allocating
Mhm.
resources to
Mhm.
activities that might not be
Right.
beneficial to you
Right.
in the long
You
term.
only have 10 employees. You only
Yes.
have X number of dollars, whatever it is, and so then that's where you lose even more profit because you
Yes.
hire more employees, you buy more whatevers, all of those various things. And again, you didn't think it through. You didn't plan.
Yeah, it's hard. The
Mhm.
biggest shift, if we talk about like we talked about the growth
Mhm.
operating mindset, but the
Mhm.
biggest shift is moving from a hustle-based mentality
Mhm.
into your new role as an owner. And your
Mhm.
role is basically it's capital allocator. And it
Mhm.
sounds very MBA, but it's
Mhm.
true. Your role
Where
now,
does the money go?
correct.
Mhm.
Money and effort, which is the
Mhm.
same
Mhm.
thing. Where is attention going?
Mhm.
And your ability to make those decisions
Mhm.
is gonna have a direct correlation with what
Mhm.
is left in your profit at the end of the year, at the end of the
Mhm.
month. It's it's basically a measurement of how well you were able to allocate resources because we already know that at that
Mhm.
stage something is working, clients
Mhm.
are coming in.
Mhm.
The question is then becomes where do I put my
Mhm.
attention, the
Mhm.
attention of the people working for me, and my capital to spend, right?
Mhm.
That's the shift.
Right. Well, and I'm guessing then a big problem becomes the fact that you are expecting your employees in particular to do more with less,
Yes.
and you lose them. So then you've got an even bigger problem, because you just lost a bunch of maybe your best talent because you were saying, I need you to do more, I need you to do more, and they finally went, nope, I'm done.
Yeah. People love having clear direction
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm.
So imagine, so let's take the default. Most companies, um, employees at the C-suite level, um, they they execute in a vacuum a lot of time. So there's the founder maybe has a vision,
Mhm.
maybe it's articulated, maybe it's semi-articulated, and then the employees need to decide, employees in the leadership level,
Mhm.
where am I spending most of my time or most of my effort?
Mhm.
And what the risk by doing this is if you have five leadership team members
Mhm.
and everyone is working on a tangent,
Mhm.
you basically get a very wide,
Mhm.
shallow execution level,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It's just they do a lot of different things.
Mhm.
They're not rowing in the same
Mhm.
direction. And you lose momentum.
Mhm.
So the better idea is to almost like a laser beam, focus them on everybody on a single activity
Mhm.
or a single direction. Articulating the direction is the hard
Mhm.
part, but once you have it, everybody's in the, and then they make decisions within their lane,
Mhm.
within the context of what we're
Mhm.
trying to achieve.
Mhm.
And they become much more effective, they become happier,
Mhm.
and much more empowered because they know their lane. I know where we're going, I know how we're going to get there. Now the question is, what do I need to do tomorrow
Mhm.
morning to make it
Mhm.
happen? And they can
Right.
make that decision.
Right. Yeah, nobody likes working in chaos.
Yep.
I mean, it's interesting. I spent a lot of my time working for marketing and PR agencies. And
Mhm.
part of the reason that I like that is it changes frequently, right? You never know what's going to happen, but you still know what is expected and things like that. It's not just totally random, off the wall. And and I think that is something that a lot of times people don't consider is, well, we could just give them more and we don't have to tell them. We're just gonna, and because a big part of my job has been employee communication, right? We don't have to tell them. They'll just go and do it. They might or they might not. And it doesn't matter whatever level it is. If anything, your senior level executives need and want to know more.
Yeah, they want to know really if you can help them have two pieces of information and you have a strong team, you'll skyrocket.
Mhm.
So if you are able to tell them or to clearly articulate the destination
Mhm.
of where you're going, more than just like the vision, which is
Mhm.
this more, but the
Mhm.
specific destination
Mhm.
and the map of how you're gonna get there. And the map is really where the work starts.
Right.
So it's like, what are we focusing on? What kind of customer are we focusing on? What revenue streams are we focusing on? What do we do best? What we're not doing best? High level marketing, sales, production, and retention strategy. And you have a strong team with a product that people love,
Mhm.
magic happens.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I go back to why am I even in this space? Because I saw so many companies with amazing products and amazing teams that can execute,
Mhm.
and they just get lost.
Mhm.
They just get lost along the way. And it's not because they don't have a good product, it's not because they're not capable.
Mhm.
They just don't know how to set the direction and set the path
Mhm.
or the map. And
Mhm.
how would they?
Mhm.
Like, it's not an easy task. It's not something you taught. Existing systems today don't touch on this.
Mhm.
All the system out there,
Mhm.
like EOS, they're all about execution.
Mhm.
Like, execution is going to solve your problem. So I ended up building a system
Mhm.
and I called it the Growth Decisions
Mhm.
Canvas, and it's publicly open.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's publicly open for everybody to enjoy.
Mhm.
And the idea here that if you can articulate your destination and your path
Mhm.
through a process
Mhm.
with your team,
Mhm.
you have a strong team that can execute and you have a product that people love, that is the missing skill set or
Mhm.
that is the missing
Mhm.
piece.
Mhm.
Does it make sense?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Right.
that's why I see the fractional
Mhm.
partner as the most impactful
Mhm.
way to actually help companies.
Mhm.
It's like they don't need me to do their marketing. They
Right.
don't need
They've
me to
got
do
that. Mhm.
correct.
Mhm.
They don't need me to tell them what
Mhm.
product they're building.
Mhm.
They need me as someone with experience
Mhm.
in helping them choose left or right
Mm.
as they go through this
Mhm.
process. And
Mhm.
once they do, they don't need me for execution
Mhm.
anymore. They just
Right.
go and they kick ass. It's
Mhm.
the focusing
Mhm.
aspect of saying, okay, I have this company that does
Mhm.
10 things,
Mhm.
and I'm going to walk you through a process. By
Mhm.
the end of it, you're
Mhm.
going to probably do one or two
Mhm.
things. Once they have this, a light bulb
Mhm.
almost like turns on
Mhm.
into the C-suites individuals
Mhm.
and magic happens.
Mhm. Right. They know what their potential is.
They know where they're
Mhm.
going and they know how they're
Mhm.
going to get
Mhm.
there. And all
Right.
that's left is just doing the work.
Mhm. Right. And then when you know to me it's like GPS, right? You don't get in your
Mhm.
car and just say take me. You have to tell it I need to go to the Waffle House on wherever, right? I'm in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
And so and because I mean if you just I don't think GPS would just randomly take you places. And it
No.
might. AI at some point might, hey, we're just gonna. This sounds like a fun place. We'll go there. But yeah, there has to be that direction, and that destination too. I mean, I think
Yes.
too many times that's the thing is we're just gonna go and hope we get to a good place.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I see a couple of challenges. I see some. So, one, I see companies setting a very, very loose destination.
Mhm.
So, 9 times out of 10, when I work with companies, their destination is either vanity based,
Mhm.
meaning I want to be the biggest, I want to be the
Mhm.
number one,
Yep. I want to be on that
or
list or whatever. Mhm.
it's revenue based, meaning I want to be 10 million, 5 million
Mhm.
profit revenue. Okay.
Mhm.
The challenge with these kind of
Mhm.
vision is those visions don't really help you make decisions.
Mhm.
These are like the end result,
Mhm.
but they're not filter mechanisms.
Mhm.
So when I work with companies, the way, or let's talk about how do you set the destination.
Mhm.
So what I found is if you want to set a good destination,
Mhm.
a destination is a byproduct of your problem solution thesis or your mission statement.
Mhm.
I'll explain what I mean by that.
Mhm.
So first, when we start, you built a company.
Mhm.
Great. Let's uncover what is the problem you saw in the marketplace
Mhm.
and what is your way of solving that problem. Very, very high level.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you'll see that this goes back to the root of the reason
Right.
for existence.
Yeah, I
You started
started
this,
my company
yes,
because.
because you saw a
Mhm.
problem in the
Mhm.
marketplace.
Mhm.
With time, you kind of deviated from this and you kind of went with the market. But I
Mhm.
want you to go back to the root of what exactly you're trying to
Mhm.
achieve.
Mhm.
Once you have that,
Mhm.
setting the destination becomes much easier.
Mhm.
In my book, the destination is a success metric
Mhm.
plus a timeline.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I want you to go through a process or invite people to go through a process. And everything I'm saying here is publicly open. You can do it with
Mhm.
me or without me,
Mhm.
of deciding what exactly is your success metric that is not revenue, that tells you if you have achieved
Mhm.
in solving that problem you've set for yourself.
Mhm.
So we tie back to the problem that they're trying to achieve
Mhm.
and remove it away from revenue
Mhm.
and profit because these are byproducts.
Mhm.
So we're focusing them. So when the moment you're able to articulate this,
Mhm.
then when you're facing with decision, you can ask yourself, okay, is that going to change that metric or not?
Mhm.
Am I going in the right direction? Is that going to help me get to where I want to be? Much more effectively than if I just place, I want to be the biggest market or the biggest one in the market or the $100 million company. It just doesn't tell you, it's missing context, right? The idea here in all of the idea in moving into growth by subtraction, the method or
Mhm.
the mechanics is basically stacked linear decisions. So
Mhm.
I explain what I mean by that.
Mhm.
The reason why you're not able to grow by subtraction a lot of times is because you haven't articulated some of your decisions. You haven't committed to a path.
Mhm.
So in order to commit to a path, the method that I use, the growth decision canvas,
Mhm.
basically is let's make one decision at a time.
Mhm.
And those decisions influence the following decisions.
Okay.
So as we articulated the problem solution thesis or
Mhm.
the mission statement,
Mhm.
it affected our ultimate goal or a success metric.
Mhm.
Once we do that, we go through a process of outlining our strategic advantages or
Mhm.
core competency, which is
Okay.
usually the hardest part
Mhm.
for most companies.
Mhm.
But once you have this,
Mhm.
so I am solving this kind of problem.
Mhm.
This is what I'm trying to optimize for. This is what I do extremely well, better than
Mhm.
other competitors.
Mhm.
Then when we get to a conversation around what customer types we want to keep serving from everyone that we serve,
Mhm.
now we can see that some of them fit perfectly and
Mhm.
some of them don't fit perfectly. Great.
Mhm.
So that is
Mhm.
through that mechanism, you start shelling out stuff that is out of your core. Okay,
Right.
so we chose
Mhm.
one customer type.
Mhm.
Great. And as we go through the discussion around revenue stream roadmap or what product we want to develop, what product we want to focus on,
Mhm.
so we already shell a bunch of different customers. We already are clear on what we do at best
Mhm.
and what we don't do best.
Mhm.
Now the question becomes from what we have today, what do we want to double down on?
Mhm.
Very self-evident.
Mhm.
So step by step in a linear decision, you just decision after decision allows you to start saying
Mhm.
no
Right.
by default. And
Right.
that's the magic.
Mhm.
That's where the magic happens when you
Mhm.
start saying no.
Mhm. Right. And I'm guessing that as you're going through this, you're seeing where there is information missing. Things like, if you say, who is your perfect client,
Yeah.
customer, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call them. And I'm sure you've heard this. I hear this all the time. Everyone. No. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be an income level. There's so many things. And it goes back to what we were saying before. People think, well, everyone, because that's how we're going to make the most money. Well,
No.
no company
No.
sells to
No. No.
everyone.
No. Well, let's
They
talk about
know
what's the
this
risk,
is
Deb.
right.
Let's talk about what is the
Mhm.
risk when you have like a customer
Mhm.
persona that is not
Mhm.
defined, that is everyone.
You're
Where does it
wasting
show up in the
money and
business?
time, right? Because I laugh at this, like TV commercials, right? Sitting there
Yeah.
watching, and I'm thinking, I am not in any way somebody who would buy their product. Therefore, they just wasted
Yeah.
that time advertising to me.
Yeah.
Because they bought an ad space that was, most people are watching 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Therefore, we're going to advertise 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, I worked for the American Cancer Society, and during we were doing some programs that were specifically targeting new mothers and some issues that they might have. And the TV station said, let's do this during the 6 o'clock news because that's when the most people were watching.
Yeah.
And luckily we were smart enough to say no. We want our stuff to run at 2 a.m. when
Wow.
that new mom is up watching TV because she's nursing, right?
Yeah.
Baby needed a bottle then. And so she was, so you went from an audience of thousands to maybe 20, but those were the right 20 people.
Correct. Yes. Yes. So is exactly the challenge. So there's a couple of things here. One is most companies are not mass market companies at that
Right.
stage. If you want to be a mass market company, these are this is not early stage and this is not
No.
growth by subtraction. This is growth by expansion. And it's like for very, very large companies that can afford to almost like pray and spray kind of
Right.
model.
But even those companies aren't targeting everybody. I mean,
They're
I always
not.
think of Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Walmart's one of the biggest companies, but they still know who is going to come and buy from them.
Correct. Because when you do know, and that's where the power happens, you basically gain efficiency. Efficiency in your chosen channels. Basically, where am I going to advertise? Efficiency in what I'm going to say. Basically, going back to being able to articulate their pain points and their needs and really build products and services that solve that pains and their needs and being able to articulate those. You're able to close more clients. So you will have probably less clients coming in the funnel, but you will convert more of
Right.
them.
Right.
So in a more efficient way, because you targeted the right ones, you are able to produce a better experience for them because you are tailoring made your experience for that specific type of customer, and you're going to be able to retain more of them because
Right.
the whole business is built to serve a
Right.
specific
Right.
type of client.
Right. So you get repeat business and or
Yeah.
referrals.
Correct. Yes. It's a skill. It's leverage. It requires a choice. It requires a commitment. It requires saying no. You're probably, if you are running a business, you are probably serving multiple different types of clients. And it's okay to serve multiple different types of clients as long as you are articulating the one that you're building the business towards.
Right.
Right? We can have other ones coming in, and that's fine, but I'm not gonna cater to them. They're nice to have add-ons. There's leverage in doing that. It's the subtraction. Again, let's choose one that fits best to what we're trying to achieve and the best margin profile and the best product. Which one is our perfect customer?
Right.
Choose it.
Right. And that is hard to
It's hard.
eliminate a whole bunch of potential clients, but they really weren't potential clients.
Yeah.
That's the thing to remember.
Yeah. So usually you'll see that it's hard to cut, especially business owners. They built this. It probably took a long time to build these relationships. It's hard. The mechanism of choosing is two. One is the stack decision filtering. So we talked about basically I already made a bunch of decisions. Let's see if what I have, which one of the segments that I have actually align with this. The second is through a financial lens. So before we even start cutting, we go through a process of basically mapping, called a profit map. Let's take all the segments and let's see which one of them actually produces profit. And this is where a lot of kind of business owners fall through the trap is most people can tell you their profitability based on their direct COGS or direct costs. Basically, how much did it cost me? How much money did I get from this specific segment type of client? And how much did it cost me to produce the service on a COG basis, cost of goods sold basis? The challenge is where this becomes interesting is that there are a bunch of overhead expenses that happens that you need to have on your balance or in your P&L because you are serving a specific segment. And most times owners don't attribute those, so they ignore them. They think of it as a sunk cost. But if you go through the experience with a question, what overhead expense would I not have if I didn't have a specific client? You can start seeing different margin profile for different segments. Maybe you are serving like consumers and then you service businesses. And maybe in order to service businesses, you have to have a sales force to do that. Or they require a different sort of touch point or a different sort of service. It hides in your overhead or your fixed costs. But if you attribute it, you can see that maybe serving businesses is much less profitable than service consumer.
Right.
Great. As you go with more information into this decision, you will choose
Mhm.
the one that
Right.
fits you best.
Right. Well, now speaking of choosing, what happens when you've got the founder, the business, the person who started this business who loves what they do, but maybe what they love isn't what they should be doing?
Hmm. Yes. Um, okay. Um, So I never experienced someone that love what they do and are not doing it today.
Mhm.
The challenge is that they started because they loved what they're doing,
Mhm.
and then they had a shiny object syndrome, and they saw
Right.
other stuff that they liked more, and
Mhm.
pursue other things on account or
Mhm.
by neglecting the side that brought the business to where it was, and it's not as interesting anymore.
Mhm.
So I never met someone that doesn't like their
Mhm.
business where they are
Mhm.
today. What I met is people that love different parts of their business, or more than love, I think the better word is excited
Right.
about
Mhm.
different parts
Mhm.
of their
And it
business.
is their baby, right? You don't
Yes,
want to be telling them your baby's ugly. I know.
you
That's not
don't.
wise. Mhm.
That's not. That's why I don't tell them that. Uh, that's why I walk them through a process of discovering it
Mhm.
themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of times, what happens is people have shiny object syndrome
Mhm.
and they pursue these different
Mhm.
ideas. I got the $5 million. I'm going to launch a new product. I'm going to launch a new territory. And what happens is they take resources
Mhm.
out of what has already been validated,
Mhm.
the side that has been validated in their business, the side that actually brings profit and revenue and
Mhm.
is stable,
Mhm.
and pursuing other sides that has yet to be validated, which are much riskier in diverting more and more
Mhm.
resources from what works,
Mhm.
what I know works, into what I hope that would work in the
Right.
future.
Yeah.
And I think that's a growth strategy. And my role is a lot of time, A, figure out if there's really a growth strategy there, but more is like connect them back to their root
Mhm.
and kind of get them excited about building the business that they have,
Mhm.
not the business that they imagine they will have one day, because it's the less risky.
Mhm.
Can you succeed
Mhm.
in multiple ways? Yes.
Mhm.
Is it a path of least resistance?
Mhm.
Probably not.
Mhm.
So from a capital allocator perspective, from I am now stepping out for the hustle and going into how do I grow this from almost like an MBA private equity mindset, I will choose what I know works and has been validated any day over your new adventure. You want new
Right.
adventure? No problem.
Mhm.
Let's grow the side that works
Mhm.
to the point where it's such a repeatable
Mhm.
machine
Right.
and it's
It's
not a
just
five
going all
million
by itself.
and
Mhm.
it's not a $5 million machine, it's
Mhm.
probably a $50 million
Mhm.
machine.
Mhm.
And then we can talk about growth by expansion,
Mhm.
which is what you're the
Mhm.
shiny object, new
Right.
markets,
Mhm.
new products, new
Mhm.
revenue stream.
Mhm.
If you take your resources and deploy them or stretch them
Mhm.
too early in your journey, you will just cannibalize your good business
Mhm.
and you will become mediocre in multiple things instead of becoming
Mhm.
exceptional in one.
Mhm. Right. And the bright shiny object is worse and worse, right? Because we see it. It was funny. I was on a mastermind group earlier today, and we were talking about news.
Yeah.
You get news from hundreds of different resources now. And I said, I really want to go back to when we just had Walter Cronkite. That's before
Hmm.
your time.
Yeah.
But it was one, very well respected, news anchor, and you trusted him. Now he was the only one. But
Hmm.
now, there's so many different things, and oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I'm going to listen there. I'm going to do that. And again, you don't. The information that you're getting isn't good for any of it. And I think that's especially when we're looking at the bright shiny objects, we're just seeing the bright and the shiny.
Yeah.
We're not seeing what went into it.
Yeah.
Was it sustainable for them? Were they, because and we all have the, I want to be bigger and stronger and better than that other company, right? We
Yeah.
compare ourselves to them. And
Yeah.
again, we don't know what went into what they did. And maybe they're suffering also. We just don't see that.
Yes, I want to add on this. So you don't know what went into it. You also don't know what their strategic advantages or
Mhm.
core competencies
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
So just because a company is where it's at, it's a byproduct of a lot of decisions, but also they have a core competency that allows them to do that. So I, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I don't love looking externally at competitors because I will follow their strategy. A better way to do that is, in my opinion, to look internally. So the mindset is internally of what do I do best? I, as an organization, right? What do I know how to do that other companies don't know how to do? Have that in mind, and then go view the world and ask yourself, okay, where's the fit? Not by what other companies are doing, but what I know how to do extremely well, where I want to be, what kind of customer I serve. And then you go and you look at the world, and there's a question in the canvas, which is what revenue streams don't exist that we want to take advantage of with our strategic advantages, something like that. But basically, the idea here is that once I know my identity and what I do extremely well, then I can go back and filter information. And that information, it doesn't just lead me because I have a super strong anchor of who I am. It's like the difference. So these companies a lot of time are what I call the adolescent stage, right? They're teenagers.
Right.
You're still trying, you're not a child anymore, but you're still not an adult. You're still trying to figure out who you are.
Right. What am I going to be when I grow up?
Correct. And adults make decisions based on they know themselves, right? So I'm not going to go through this experience and I'm going to go through this experience because I know what I like and I don't like what I'm good at. It's the same thing with organizations, right? It's if you can get them through a maturity process where their identity is super tight, then they can look at the world and say, okay, this sounds like a great opportunity for me to pursue, or this is an opportunity, but it's not in my core competencies or strategic. I don't have any advantage in doing that. So you can stop yourself from doing that.
Right. It might be cool. It might look like it's going to make a lot of money, but back to revenue versus profit, right? You know, am I going to have to put so much money into doing it that, you know, and not just money, resources is the better term, right? Yeah. And so it's money, it's people, it's time, it's all of those various things, you know, and I love that you talk about cannibalizing. Because that is what happens. You know, it's like, ooh, well, this person was really good at whatever it was, so we're going to pull them over here. And they might not be good at that.
Correct.
You know, you know, and they might, you know, they might be fabulous. Who knows? But that comes back to the analyzing. And I think so many times we don't do that. You know, it's, you know, this sounds good. Let's go do it. And then later on, you might go, oh, that might not have been a good decision, right?
Yes. Why? Why, Deb? Why? Because they make decisions in a vacuum.
Yes.
When you make decisions without any filter mechanism of who am I or where am I going, every decision seems to be like a legit decision. Right? It makes sense. Like we can pursue this, we can pursue this. If I don't have any context, then everything becomes fair game. When you set constraints upon yourself, and constraints, it sounds like a harsh term, but it's really like decisions. When you make some decisions, right? Who are you as a company and what am I trying to achieve and how am I going to go about this? Decisions becomes easier because you have this context in your mind that allows you to judge if this is the right decision for my business at this specific time. And I go back to like, what is the role for us as entrepreneurs at this stage is just making decisions and allocating resources, right? That's the skill set. So the more context you have, the easier it would be to actually make a decision. And more than this, your team can make decisions too, because they have the same version of what you're building, right? If we use the Growth Decision Canvas, it's a one-page tool, but any other, you have one version, clear version of what we're building here that everybody shares, and then they can make those decisions themselves within their domains or their function.
Right.
Power, super powerful.
Right. What happens though when you've got a company that's and you know they've just done this so much that they don't have the context. They don't, you know, they can't figure out what their core competency is because they've gotten so far away from it. Are they even savable?
100%.
Okay.
So most companies don't know what their core competencies are. Most companies don't even know what core competencies are.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's a super MBA, like management consulting term. But most companies don't know how to articulate what they're good at, but they are good at something. So my prerequisite for a company to work with is I need really 2 to 3 things. I need strong team that can execute. So basically, your leadership team needs to be able to make decision and execute on the decision and be successful in doing that. Because if you don't have a team, then those decisions don't get transit execution. And if your team can execute it, we're just talking about just for the sake of talking. So that's one. The second, you need to have product market fit, meaning you need to have the product that people love. It can be a service that people love. It can be a product, but you need to be able to have customer love you. And the third is you need to be in the black, meaning that you cannot be losing money.
Right.
Because if you're losing money, then something is inherently broken. But if you're not making, most companies don't lose money; they just make a very small profit. If you have this, then what you really have, you have a company that is working. People love it. It's viable, meaning that it's not distressed. And then the work becomes, or my work becomes, is extrapolating those decisions. And that's my favorite, because if you walk through a process, one decision at a time, and you see the light bulbs. So core competency is number 4 in the order of workshops that we do. We get there a little later. But yes, most companies can't organically articulate what they do extremely well than anybody else. But with a experienced entrepreneur next to you, plus a framework, we get really cool results. And those results act as a filtering mechanism to other decisions that we need to make. Make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Totally salvageable. Most companies can't articulate this. It's not expected.
Right. Yeah. And you know, the other big thing is they might be profitable. And they've been profitable just kind of doing this hodgepodge, you know, we're going to go here, we're going to go here, we're going to go do this and this. And so they say, well, we've been profitable. We've been making money. Why do we need to do better? Well, of course, you know, and you hate to put it this way, but this is the way you could be doing more. You could be doing better, you know,
Yes.
and, you know, they might, and sure, there are the companies that say, I'm happy with where we are.
Yeah.
That's
I can
fine.
tell you that, yes, that through my experience, these companies that feel like everything is great are not companies that I work
Right.
with, because they're not open to change a
Right.
lot of
Yeah,
times.
they don't want to change. They are happy with where they are, and that is fine. That's what's for them. You know, but yeah, it's the companies that are like, we want to go to that next level, you know, and you know, whatever it is. But you know, and also, you know, they have, you know, we've been saying they've got those limited resources of whatever it is. And what is the saying? You can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's what it is too, is they need an outside person, an outside viewpoint to say, well, what if?
Yeah. A lot of times I found that companies actually bring me in when they feel the friction. And friction manifests itself in different ways. It manifests itself in operational friction. A lot of time it manifests itself in like high revenue, low profit. That's my favorite because this is the easiest to fix. Hey, I made $20 million company and I bring home $400,000. Okay, so like, okay, something isn't clicking. So you talked about life. So what you mentioned is lifestyle. So some people don't want to grow and they're happy with where they're at. Perfect, fantastic, kick ass. Other companies want to grow and they are profitable. So one of two things happen. Either they are able to navigate this and kind of grow by subtraction by their own. Very few companies can do that. It's very hard to do internally, to just cutting your own business over and over again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because yeah, you don't see it.
Yes. And some companies just hit the point where there's friction and then either they call me or they call EOS or they put some systems in place, which I think is the wrong solution, but like they try to fix something. As you grow and you keep saying yes to things and your company becomes wider, you will hit a plateau. It's math. So the outliners would not, but most companies, especially companies that are optimized for profit, there is a universe of venture-backed companies that don't optimize for profit. They optimize for scale and for revenue. They don't mind that they lose a lot of money because they have raised a lot of money.
Right.
That's not the game that I play. But if you want to grow profitably, have to make better
Mhm.
decisions along the way. That's the only way to do that um, consistently.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I always wonder about those companies that, they talk about, they have so much when you do the math, you see
Yeah.
they're in the hole. And they've
Yes.
just been churning along. And let's be honest, like some of the AI companies right now really are, and Bitcoin and a lot of those new things, they're, as we would say, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they can go on like that for a very long time. But at some point, there's going to be like that plateau,
Yeah.
and they're going to go, oh, we're 100 million in the hole, and nobody's going to fund us anymore. We can't do an IPO or whatever it is, and then they're done.
Yeah, I think venture is a super risky game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really like a binary game where by default, most of your portfolio is going to fail.
Right.
That's just like the mechanism. One of them or two are going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But as a founder,
Mm-hmm.
individually, right? I came from VC, but I work a lot with more traditional businesses today. Um, this is super risky game for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to necessarily play if I don't become $100 million company. $100 million is even small for VC. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to see my money again. You need to be a $500 million company. Um, it's so hard,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to have so much capital to do that. It's such a different game.
Mm-hmm.
I would much prefer being a $50 million self-funded companies that is net positive
Yeah.
than being $500 million company in the whole. Just a
Yeah,
different game.
that stress level, I just can't imagine that. And of course, if they're there, they love that. I mean, they're
Yeah.
feeding on that stress, and that's great. You're called, your name is Elon, or whatever it is, right?
Elon is 0.01111% of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah.
It's too risky for my
Hmm.
taste.
Hmm. Yeah. And all it takes, especially when you start getting that big, is one thing that happens. A big example would of course be COVID. There were so many companies that were doing very well, and then oopsie. you know and yeah, I've never seen a stat, and I've probably heard it, as to how many companies actually failed because of COVID, but it was a lot. But it was a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
They couldn't function with people not in the office. They couldn't make their product. All of those various things. But yeah, I mean, but that comes back to the strategy and the plan. I also do crisis management planning. The
Mhm.
what happens if.
Yeah.
Can you predict everything? No. But you can still be prepared. I live in Atlanta. What happens if we hit a bad storm? It's the same concept as when we were in Denver. What happens if it snows too much, right? You can deal with that. But when you've got those foundations, then you can deal with the other things that might come up.
Yeah. So I go back to when you optimize for revenue
Hmm.
or to scale versus
Hmm.
profitability,
Right. Hmm.
it's almost like a cheat sheet.
Hmm. Hmm.
You let activities live
Hmm.
where they probably should not live.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you just do
Hmm.
stuff because you can,
Hmm.
not because necessarily it covers for strategy. It's like almost like I don't need strategy, I have cash.
Hmm.
And that
This
works in
sounds
the beginning.
fun.
This sounds fun. This sounds like it's going to work.
Hmm.
If I'm not optimizing for return or for
Hmm.
profit,
Hmm.
then I can make decisions that
Hmm.
are somewhat not
Right.
rational
Hmm.
or not backed.
Hmm.
I don't need to back it because even if we fail, I have money to pay for
Hmm.
that. So
Right.
different mindset, different way to approach business building. I used to be in venture. I'm not in venture anymore by decision. I saw a lot of different bootstrap companies that. So the reason why I work with startups, I work with bootstrap. I mostly work with bootstrap,
Hmm.
and the reason why, as you mentioned, I didn't work. I volunteered at Polsky and they Score. So I worked at VC during my day job.
Hmm.
They got me for free.
Hmm.
So the fund said to me, I'm expensive. They got me for free. They got, I need resources for the real sole reason that they had investment from the fund.
Hmm.
The fund wanted them to continue. So yarn. At the same time, I work with bootstrap companies,
Hmm.
amazing cash flow. amazing businesses,
Mm-hmm.
strong founders,
Mm-hmm.
and they can only access me maybe once a quarter, once every 6 months because I volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but they could really, my help would go so far. That's why I ended up where I am now. I work with plumbing companies,
Mm-hmm.
I work with electric companies,
Mm-hmm.
I work with e-com,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it because they need every decision need to make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not a profitable decision, we're not going to do it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Different game
Mm-hmm.
than if you are in a venture-backed company, which
Right.
I want to optimize for scale, and then someone would buy me even though I don't make any cash flow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Different game.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Yaron, this has been absolutely fascinating. And some of it I've been kind of going, oi, I don't, but I know that there are companies thinking, okay, we're ready. And I don't want to say they're struggling, but they
Yeah.
know they need something besides
Yeah.
what they've got. So how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah. So they find me by going to fractional.partners. That's how they find me. I want to talk a little bit about my open framework for everybody to use. So as I mentioned, I developed the growth decisions canvas. So it's really like a one page that outlines all of your decisions that allow you to grow by subtraction. That is available for free. If you go to canvas.fractional.partners, you can access it. It's in Notion. You can download it. You can go through all the steps of creating it
There it
yourself.
is. I just opened it. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I believe that knowledge should be free.
Mhm.
That's not so. Before you install EOS or fix execution, here's my invitation. Inside it, you'll see a growth bottleneck snapshot. So before we know or before we get into fixing anything, let's figure out what is not clear about your strategy or what decisions haven't been made. So it's basically a 3 minute survey. There's 18 questions
Mhm.
that you fill, and then you ask your team to fill as well.
Right. And it's
And
things
what
like
it,
who is the perfect customer? What
correct.
existing stream should we focus on right now?
Yes.
Things that
And
seem
yes,
basic, but you're right. A lot of times they can't answer them.
seem basic, but once you ask all of your team,
You're
not
going to get 20 different answers or whatever,
yes,
right?
you will
Mm-hmm.
also see what parts are unclear.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's your starting point, right? What decisions haven't been explicit? So we can go back and use the canvas or me. So what I do is I help companies go through this process and I guide them as their fractional partner in this process as to, okay, so what decisions haven't been made? And then my super skill or my interest is I'm not just here to facilitate a workshop. I am here to participate as well. So I invite the founders to, for the first time in their life, probably take a side seat and let me lead for a moment, and they can just participate. And I facilitate, but I don't just facilitate. I also participate and guide them and share with them as if I was their investor in their business or their fractional partner, what I would have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the magic happened. And we align, we do that with a team, we put it on the canvas and we start making decisions. So they leave with me with version 2 that then they plug into EOS or to scaling up or to their own existing system and they execute. And then we meet again when we need to refresh this. So I become their like semi compass and then they go execute and they kick ass. Usually we cut a lot of stuff. Usually profit grows significantly. It takes time, but it's a really cool process. I wish I had this process when I run my businesses. That's why I got this. I'm a huge advocate of like different systems and operating systems. I just found that they were all operational and none of them talked about choosing the right destination. So EOS makes sure everybody's rowing in the same direction. It doesn't make sure you're rowing in the right direction. So I built a system that helps you row in the right direction.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. And we will have the link obviously to the website. And there's a big button on the website where where you can do this. And then we'll link to your LinkedIn profile. But yeah, this really has been just absolutely fascinating. And I think even if you are a very small business, it still helps to go through this because
Yes.
you see who is the perfect customer, all of those various things, and just go through it. And then maybe at some point you're going to reach the stage where you need to hire Yaron.
Yeah.
And so that's great. But
You outline your assumptions. The only difference between early stage and later stage is at the beginning, it's just assumptions, right? You
Right.
don't know who your perfect customer is. So you choose one with like it's a guesstimate. With the companies that are a little bit more mature, the job then becomes just like selecting from what exists
Right.
versus guessing what will work.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Yarin, this has been absolutely fascinating. And I know that people will have gotten a lot out of this. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yes. If you are past product market fit, or if you have some traction in your business and you're feeling friction, stuff is not clicking, marketing is not clicking, or cost of acquisition is going up, or everything becomes more complex, resist the first urge to put more systems in place and to streamline operation, and ask yourself, am I actually deliberate around what version of this business am I scaling? And don't just scale version 1 that you've built by adding stuff. Pause for a moment, narrow down your business. You will thank me. Everything will flow much easier. And then go systemize. But choose a narrower version that is actually worth scaling. Then go and scale that one.
This has been wonderful. I am Deb Creer. I've been speaking with Yarin Gaon, the founder of Fractional Partners. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.